when we interact with people, whether at work or out in any, especially if there is any gathering of any kind, we tend to, we can get easily get caught up in the superficial levels of being. So it's very important to always be grounded in our core essence of being, because if you look at the physical body, which is what normally we take ourselves to be, everyone does so, but it is quite obviously, first of all, of the process of constant change and even decomposition. Body ages over time. It's not perceptible day over day, but the body changes, even the and it's constantly going through all kinds of, not just changes but various processes, which we don't even know that it happens. So quite obviously the physical body has its own mind, so to speak. It has its own um, way of functioning. It has its own intelligence with which it's functioning, all the way from the cellular level to the organs and the various systems and so on. And all we perceive is an image of the body. So, what we call our body or anyone's body is only the image. We actually don't even know what our body is. We simply have an image as we have um, collected over memory. We look at the mirror, or we may look at the photographs, and we have an image. And that image is what we call our body, not the actual physical body. Same with the mind. When we talk of the mind, all there is so many influences through memory, through upbringing, through culture, through environment, and all the rest, which brings forth various thoughts and feelings and so on. And if you're not alert, it's very easy to get identified with them. Even if you're not identified with the body, it's very easy to get identified with the mental movements, which are very subtle, which can come about in um, unexpected ways. We can make a judgment, or we can be carried away by some desire, or we can have a subconscious fear rising. So many things can happen if we are not alert, and all of these are simply movements of memory that is getting fed by this false identification. Because the more one identifies with these memory patterns, the more they get energized. So it's almost like they come up to get charged and then they go back. That's their only job. They have their own life again, just as the body has its own life, its own intelligence. The mind has its own intelligence. And the mind seems to just keep itself going, using us, as it were, for its life. So when we call the mind, that's why there is no such thing as an individual mind, because there are only thought patterns, and various thought patterns interact with thought patterns to get validated, to get reinforced. So when we, let's say, have a particular affiliation let's say politically or socially or culturally, we tend to seek out validation of it. And this is why, for instance, it is said that social media today is a very dangerous influence, because people connect with people who think alike and thereby get reinforced of their thought patterns. And all we see is we are helplessly then dragged by these thought patterns to just keep them going. So people don't even recognize it, that they are not having thoughts, thoughts are having them. So thoughts are simply coming up, and using them, using the consciousness that is there, because that's the only charge, that's the only life force really, and that is being used by thoughts to sustain itself. So thought has no interest in anything except sustaining itself. So it comes up, let's say any thought, and people get so strongly identified with thoughts, either at a personal level or social level or cultural level, so many levels in which thoughts have their own way. It's quite strange when we look at people who, for example, get so worked up about so many issues, and putting themselves and others in physical danger even because of their attachment to ideas. And all that happens there is the ideas or emotions, they are essentially living through them, and they are being used by them. So these thoughts have their own energy and they get percolated, so they go from generation to generation. So people are fighting the same wars and having the same petty struggles individually, in relationships, in between nations, and all the rest, because um, there is nothing new in thought. Thought is just recycling itself. It's simply the same thought that is now wanting to use, that was using maybe an axe, and now it wants to use a nuclear weapon. But it's the same thought effectively that is at the root of it, and it is constantly energizing itself through all these people. And people are unconsciously feeding the thoughts without even recognizing that it's thoughts that's living, and not they are not living, thoughts are living through them. So if we see all this very clearly in our own and in everyone else, but then if we thereby, by seeing this and clearly perceive the falsity of all this, then there remains the core being, which is always present and which is ever unaffected by anything. And that core being is animating everyone and everything at the fundamental or at the substrate level, as the very foundation of living, which is the heart of one's being, the true heart. So when we look into anyone, if we look at them not as a body or look at them not as a mind, but if we look into one's eyes as the very heart of being, then we are actually seeing the person. Otherwise, we are only seeing an image of either what thoughts I like in them or what thoughts I don't like in them, whether I like the way they appear physically or not, whether all the rest, all the judgments and likes and dislikes is what we live through if we relate to the body or the mind. But if we look into their eyes, anyone's eyes, or it cannot even, need not even be a person, Even when we look at a blade of grass, or if we look at a flower, or if we walk through just a trail and see the beauty of nature, if we look at it without any sense of comparing it with anything else, or trying to simply acquire the experience by just capturing it in the memory, but just being there present and just looking at them, then we are connecting to the very being, very foundation of being. And that is true for our own being as for anyone else. So that's the essence of self abidance through self inquiry, is to see the falsity of all else and how they are causing so much trouble, because humans especially, we have both a unique capability and therefore a unique danger as well. Animals and other aspects of nature, they are always in the now, but then they are caught in the now helplessly, in the sense that they don't, they are simply responding to stimuli, eating, sleeping, and they are living in their own way peacefully, but they are also not endowed with the ability to look at their own being. And so they are always peaceful at a certain level, but also ever caught in the mode of survival. That's essentially what nature is meant to do. And so, but humans, because we are blessed with the sense of time, it is a double-edged sword. Time is normally the main culprit, because time, the ability to look at the past or to predict the future or to speculate about the future, is how we lose touch with our own being, by getting lost in thoughts about what happened or what is yet to happen and all the rest. But if we instead look at time as a manifestation of the divine energy which is going on forever, and it has its own intelligence, and thereby be freed of time, then we are back in the now, not in the way the animals are helplessly, but in a fully conscious way. So, this is why it is said that one has to transcend. We cannot devolve back to just being like animals. We cannot be stuck at where we are either. We have to evolve, as it were, into the highest ground of being, which is the purpose of humans, which is what is pointed to by all great teachers, is that we have the capacity to abide in the pure being, which is uniquely capable for humans if we realize our true potential. Instead, if we use the mind and the perception of time, and time and mind are really the same thing, because mind functions through time. It's only through time and through movement in time that mind has any way to function at all. So if we get caught in time, get caught in mind, then we are stuck. And sometimes it's, in fact, it's almost always worse than even animals, because animals, because of their inability to perceive time, they don't engage in gruesome acts that humans do, because humans have perception of time and get caught up in ideas. We alone kill for ideas. not for just survival. So instead, if we use the same, time is a double edged sword. So if we use the sword the right way with the right edge, as it were, then we recognize the cosmic truth of time and how everything is the same in the cycle of time. It goes on with its own intelligence, and the pure being is unaffected by the movement of time, and thereby we can recognize our true essence and the same essence in all other, not just humans, but all aspects of life itself, and live in that platform of pure being. So, this is the essence of the highest dharma, the essence of abiding in the self, of being in true love, being in wisdom, whatever one calls it. And it requires, as we can see, great alertness and great sense of presence to, and also looking at everyone with compassion, because everyone is caught in the same, it's like a demon possessing people. And so people are not doing anything, it's the demon that is possessing them that's doing whatever it's doing, and everyone is helplessly pulled here and there by this force called the mind. So if we see that, then we can look at others too with compassion, and we can be free of that first in order to also reflect it for others as well. So that's the essence of all the teachings and all the great wisdom traditions in their core essence. And that's why it is said in various ways that the truth is here and now, or the kingdom of God is within you, or all the other expressions that are there. Be still. So that's what I wanted to share. It's always important to go back to this, because otherwise we can get caught up in our own understanding, and even in sadhana or spiritual practice, we can build this sense of time and have goals and all the rest that comes. So that's why the word practice itself is a very um, it's not a very correct word to use, because practice means to gain something, to acquire a skill. We can practice playing the piano or practice coding in a language or whatever, but here there is nothing to gain, nothing to learn, but we can use the word, use with the recognition that it implies not gaining anything but being alert to our own being. So if we are alert to our own being, then we are engaged in the right dharma, right practice, and thereby not get caught up in all the goals we may mind may project through even this endeavor. I need to learn this, or I need to finish that. There is nothing to learn, nothing to finish. All there is here and now. So everything that is there is only to point to this simple truth. So once we recognize that, then we can learn anything. We can read any scripture of any kind without the sense of acquiring anything new, but with a sense of just gratitude that it points to our own being.